I assume you're here because you want to learn how to draw anatomy. Well, you are in the right place. Today I'm going to break down everything that you need to know and possibly even more. Thank you guys for joining. My name's Lulu and I am just here to help you guys be better artists. The first thing that we always go back to with anything art related is always going to be the fundamentals. So let's talk about what they are, how you can use them, and how you can apply them to drawing anatomy. Anatomy really is its own fundamental, but there are fundamentals within the fundamental. Brain lag, I know, but don't worry, I'm going to tell you exactly which ones you need to use the most when drawing anatomy, and they are form, perspective, structure, shape language, and gesture. Now let's start with shapes. Shapes are going to be the very first thing that you utilize in your arsenal of weapons when it comes to all of your artistic fundamental skills. Now everything is a shape. Everything, from shadows to lighting to very complex structures all the way down to your daddy's hairline. And all you need to be able to do is look at these very complex shapes and structures and learn how to simplify them to their most basic form. For example, the arms and legs and the neck and other limbs are just cylinders, and you can break those very complex structures down into just simple cylinders, and doing so will allow you to rotate them in 3D space, in a 3-dimensional plane. You can also take the chest or the rib cage and you can just simplify that into a cube or this sort of rectangular vest thingy. I don't really know what to call it, but it's the shape that I use the most when drawing the torso. And then that rib cage connects to the abdomen, you know what I mean, the abs. And then that will connect to another box, which is the hips. And if you can learn how to manipulate these in 3D space, that's how you get different gestures. And so, once you got the hang of manipulating these simple 3-dimensional shapes, you can start adding more shapes onto them, and then you get this thing called construction, or structure. And they're just two fancy ways of basically saying, this is how this shape slots into that shape, and then suddenly you have an entire torso, or you have an entire arm. So now, let's take everything that we've learned so far and apply it to a study from a reference. We're not going to do anything too fancy schmancy yet. We're literally just going to take the most basic picture reference of the anatomy that we can find, and we're just going to apply the structure and the shape knowledge that we've acquired to this study and this reference. So let's take this arm and let's break it down into its most simple constructed shapes for your smooth, silly brains to understand. So for the shoulder, we can literally just turn it into a ball. And then for the upper arm, we can transform that into a tube or a cylinder type shape, and we'll do the exact same thing with the forearm. And then below the forearm we have the hand, and the hand is just a variety of shapes. Whoa, slow down. We're not going to do the hands right now. I know they scare all artists, so let's get back to those later and focus on the easier stuff now. And once you've figured out how to get all these shapes down and rotate them, we can then start to put them together and apply more shapes onto the ones we've already learned. So, for example, and no, you don't have to understand every single muscle and know all of their complex names like the brachioradialis, but it would help if you did. However, it's still quite important that you understand how each muscle is layered on top of each other because they are still visible underneath the skin. So for example, we can see that the deltoid here is going to slot right in between the bicep, the tricep, and sit on top of the brachialis. And so this is what we would call sandwiching. It's so satisfying to see. It's kind of like Tetris, where shapes just slot into other shapes perfectly. We can apply that same technique here with the upper arm and the forearm, where it all just slots in nicely like a Tetris puzzle. And then we can apply the exact same technique with the hand and the forearm. They're just going to slot right into each other like a Tetris puzzle. With the torso, we're just going to apply the exact same method. It's really not that difficult, guys, I promise. All you're going to do is take this vest type shape for the rib cage, you slot the abdominals right up in there, and then you take the pelvis shape, which is essentially like a pair of underwear, and you slot those into the abdominals at the bottom. And so if you look back At our sandwiching technique, we're doing the exact same thing again, just with different shapes. And now we can move on to the legs. So the legs are going to slot right in there underneath that pelvis shape, and then we can literally just take a cylinder for the upper leg, a sort of double triangle upside down shape, or if you prefer, a ball for the kneecap, and then for the lower leg and the calves, we can take another just simple cylinder shape again. And so, just like we did previously with the arms and the torso, all we're going to do is take the simple shapes that we have, look at where the muscles sit, and layer them on top. And now that you understand how construction and structure work, I've also secretly taught you how form works. Form is literally just the three-dimensional quality or volume of an object. You can picture the form of an object by visualizing a string being wrapped around it, and the shape that that string takes will represent the form of said object. Alright guys, let's take a little toothless break, a little dance break, because I know all of you have been having a hard time processing all of this heavy information. Alright, that was fun, but it's time for us to get back to learning. So we're going to move on to gesture. Okay, what I want you guys to do now is literally forget everything I've just taught you. There is a reason, and I promise you'll understand that very, very soon. Let me explain. So when we're talking about anatomy in terms of construction, we're actually talking about all of these real structured shapes interconnecting with one another. But if you apply gesture to anatomy, things suddenly become a lot more fluid and less structured. When doing gesture, you want to draw the body as a whole, as one fluid shape, and we represent these with C curves and S curves. Gesture is how we achieve a more dynamic look within our figure drawing. It creates a nice silhouette, and it can make for really, really interesting action poses. Something that can really help you when you're struggling with gesture drawing is to just block in your basic forms. You're going to want to try to eliminate all of the complex shapes that you're putting in when you're drawing your figures, like the hands, the things that really slow you down. This will kill your fluidity if you're trying to make things too complex. You're really going to want to just hold your pencil very light and very loose so that you can just block in your simple forms really quickly. This makes your figures a lot more dynamic and a lot more fluid and a lot less structured and rigid. This will then also allow you to take a line of best fit, and so you can make edits very quickly later on. So what I'd recommend that you guys do is to just go on Pinterest, find a really dynamic pose reference, and just try and block in those forms as quickly as possible. Maybe even time yourself doing it. You want to get rid of anything that will bog you down and make sure that the drawing is not too perfect to begin with. You're really just blocking in those shapes. That's literally all a gesture is. And so the beauty of this is that you just get to do it over and over and over again. You can just fill up a whole sketchbook page in 10 minutes because they're so quick to churn out, and they really help you get a visual aspect on how dynamic poses and gestures and figure drawing works. And now, yet again, I'm going to ask all of you guys to forget everything that I just told you. I promise again, it is going to make sense. Please bear with me. We're going to move on to the last tip, and this is one that I don't really see a lot within anatomy drawing videos, but it's going to be draftsmanship. And draftsmanship really just refers to the quality of how you put your lines down, how you can overlap things, and how well rendered your drawings are with a pencil. And this part's really important because there's a lot of overlap, and there are a lot of tangents within anatomy when you're drawing them with lines. If you were painting, it's a completely different story, but we are drawing here today, so draftsmanship is an important step. And so you can see examples of this draftsmanship when you are drawing things that overlap. For example, the eyelid. The eyelid will always overlap the eyeball, and that is how you create a sense of three-dimensionality within your drawings. And it can also be seen when you draw that line on the rib cage, because the rib cage will always overlap the abdomen depending on which way the body is turning. And so that gives you an opportunity to shade in a tangent using line weights, and all of those things relate to draftsmanship. And that is why it's so important when you're drawing anatomy to make that three-dimensionality look realistic, or even just appealing. It doesn't always have to be realistic because we all have different art styles, but I would certainly recommend that you study from life and you study real people, because you can always apply the realism to your stylized drawings. I really hope that you guys retained a little bit of this information from this tutorial. I just shoved a lot of information down your throats. it would be hard for me to remember all of that in one go. Maybe rewatch the video if you need to, you can always play it back. But for now, I'm just going to give you guys a quick example of how I would apply all of these things step by step within my own anatomy drawing. I'm going to take a study and simply just show you guys how I do it. Sit tight, enjoy this, take it as a moment to just relax, turn your brain off, and watch me work. Well, I think that concludes this video, guys. I really hope you learned something, and I think we covered all bases. If not, comment down below what you guys would like me to do a more in-depth tutorial on, and I can focus on one specific thing for you. Just want to give a huge shout out to my Patreons. All of your support is what allows me to make these videos and teach you guys more about art and how to become better artists yourself. If you guys are interested, I have linked it in the description. I post sketches, anatomy videos, and all of my high quality and high resolution illustrations up on there, and you can go and check that out. But as always, have fun, keep drawing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.